as South Africa marks exactly 2 years under the national state of disaster, government is now mulling new regulations to manage the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, the National Coronavirus Command Council met yesterday, but is yet to announce this decision despite the current extension to the state of disaster expiring today. Newzroom Afrika's Mbali Thethani has more.
It's almost 2 years since South Africa was placed under the national state of disaster. Cabinet's decision was implemented to fight the coronavirus. While the spread of COVID-19 infections and deaths have declined, there are talks from various sectors calling for government to lift the state of disaster. Vaccinologist Professor Mbali says COVID-19 restrictions should now be a thing of the past.
There's absolutely no role for a state of disaster. And in fact, at this point in time, all that it appears is that it's a route that NCCC is using to hold on to some power which is not required. So the remaining effects of the state of disaster, as an example, is mandating people to wear face masks. Like I said, the type of face masks that are used in South Africa and the manner in which the majority of the population wear those face masks essentially renders those face masks useless in terms of preventing infections or in terms of spreading the virus into the surrounding environment.
At the same time, another health expert says South Africa is not out of the woods yet and that government should look at keeping some regulations.
I think we really need to be smart about this. There is a lot of kind of pressure. People understandably want to be free of restrictions. Unfortunately, it is wishful thinking in the sense that we are in a very good space now. We're certainly in the interwave, in other words, between the waves, where there's very low activity currently. But we can't say really that the pandemic has gone away. Unfortunately, it hasn't. The virus is still around, and there is still a chance, hopefully it's a small chance, but there is a chance, a really significant chance, that there will be new variants coming along.
While Cabinet deals with legislation with how the country will continue to mitigate coronavirus risks, how will government implement regulations without a national state of disaster should it be lifted?
The government needs some kind of a legislative mechanism to enforce certain regulations. And what we now sit with is the regulations is driven by a state of disaster, and without the state of disaster, these regulations comes to naught. And therefore the government does not have a hold on implementing regulations. And in my mind, that is the biggest and probably the only reason why we find ourselves still in a national state of disaster.
While South Africans await a briefing from President Cyril Ramaphosa on the NCCC's decision, health experts have warned that the country will experience another surge in infections during the fifth wave. The national state of disaster has been extended 22 times. It is now in the hands of Cabinet as to whether it will be lifted. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Mbali Thethani in Johannesburg.